Bell Hooks actually speaks about it. We don't fall in love. You choose to love someone. And it's a very conscious decision. It's a series of decisions that you make. So you must say it with your chest. Don't come and say we accidentally started liking each other. No, you chose to do this thing. That sense of accountability is also important. That these are two sober minded adults with agency that know the discomfort, assessed it, and decided that it's worth the risk. Whatever we're feeling, we're going to push through and we're going to say it with our chests. We're going to take on whatever societal side eyes we get. We might lose some friendships. We're going to do it. This is the thing we're doing.
Welcome to season 2 of Are We Our Work. We are your co-hosts.
Yes, we are.
I am Nadira Patel. I'm an artist, I'm a designer, I'm a researcher, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host.
I am Kemo Bosielo. I work in public relations, specifically looking at government affairs and tech.
So, how does this work? Tiffany Ebrahim, a researcher and a scholar, has conducted interviews with a range of people, thinking through the complexities of coming together, coming undone, and the work and the love that goes into making things work. In today's episode, which is titled Former Lovers, we explore something quite personal. We speak about trust and volatility, hurt, friendship, and love, and trying again. So today's episode is again. Today's episode is quite different because my co-host is also in the interview and then interviewed by me again at the end.
Season 2 is meta.
It's hella meta. In today's episode, Kemo Bosielo, my co-host, and Tiffany Ebrahim, creator of Are We Our Work, explore what we think we're supposed to be and what our relationships are supposed to look like. How we evolve in different directions when we think we're supposed to evolve in the same direction.
Right, that's really well put. It was also wild that we had this conversation in the middle of the study booth on Wits campus.
Oh, is that where the interview happened?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, okay.
A really public platform for a very personal...
For a very intimate conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. If you stick around for the later part of this episode, I sit down with Kemo to process the many levels of reflection that are taking place.
And also, I'd just like to say that you handled that with such care. So shout outs to you.
Thanks. Well, I look forward to listening.
So one of the hugest compliments I've heard your friends give about you behind your back is that you are excellent at maintaining friendships with your exes.
Hey.
What's that about?
I happen to have one sitting across from me, so maybe we should start there. Why are you invested in this friendship?
I think with taking on the label of being in a committed monogamous relationship, I find for me that puts a lot of pressure on what roles we suddenly should or have to play. That can sometimes bog down what very naturally is just a wonderful organic flow of energy and connection between two people. And for us, I feel like we were a budding relationship under really serious circumstances. And I crumbled under the pressure of being your girlfriend. And that just felt a bit too overwhelming for me. And I felt incapable and sometimes inadequate. But I knew that when we were breaking up and once we had ended things, that I didn't want to never know you again. I almost wanted to connect to the thing we had before we started dating because it felt freer. And so I was chasing that. And friendship for me was a way in, back to that. So that's why I wanted to stay friends. Why did you want to stay friends?
Well, I didn't. No, the friendship is definitely not what was on my agenda at that time. Yeah, it's strange actually because I've been friends with you for far longer than we've been romantic partners. So it's a strange one to look back on. But still, yeah, at the time I don't know, friendship with you felt like a cop out. And it took a long time. It took a long time and a lot of hurt and a lot of tears for that concept to really land. Truthfully, in the beginning, I thought you would turn around. I thought you'd see the wonder that I am and come back to the romance. Yeah, and I was like, this friendship is nice. It's okay. I can do this. And
Was it a backdoor, like the secret?
kind
backdoor?
kind of. No, more like a hope. Because we had been there before. Like we had done this. I was like, but for me, it felt like we were both aware that our foundation was a romantic one, and that's kind of where we would always come back to. That was the hope. And then as I started coming to terms with the fact that that wasn't going to happen, I think it was the first time I could actually look at us in sober terms and maybe see like the holes in our romance that I hadn't seen before. I don't think we were very good partners. I think we want a very different kind of love. Yeah, I want a bit of a maddening love, and I think you want a calming love, like a sober, thorough, well thought out love. And I was kind of just like, I remember wanting more. I was like, I want more from you. I want you to miss me more. I want you to love me more. I want you to want me more. And I didn't feel like I was getting that. I felt like I had to suppress those urges, those needs. And it's bad because I was willing to do it. And I think that's maybe what you also started getting sight of, that I would have just kept quiet and done it just to have you in my life at that point. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's a great place to. You certainly shouldn't be starting a relationship from that point. But I was blind to that, man, when I was in it. I couldn't see it. For me, it just felt like a chance at redemption. Like we had gone literally to different continents, left this thing behind, left it to crumble. We somehow managed to work our way back full circle in the same city, single, open to a thing. I felt like it was a blessing. I was so committed to making that thing work. And so when I eventually did look at this thing sober, I could tell that it was probably the right decision.
Our friendship.
No, the relationship ending.
Oh.
So I think that was a big moment for me, that departure. Like actually saying, okay, as much as I didn't agree with your decision at the time, I think I can see it now being the right one. And I think it's only from that point that I started to think about our friendship objectively. And then when I looked at it objectively, I saw someone that was really committed to me self-actualizing. I've always thought of you championing me as just part of our romance. It was just something that you did in the beginning because that's who we were in each other's lives. And when I saw you continue to do that in a platonic setting, in this new framework we had, it moved me. Yeah, it really, really did. And it also moved me to then also realize that I am invested in your self-actualization outside of my romantic feelings for you. That I want to see you grow and I want to see you happy. So I think what's important is distance
after the relationship
ends. And that's the one thing we had never given each other. We did for the first time, I think, post second breakup. Yeah, we went for the first time in our lives, went a while without seeing each other, talking, without speaking. Yeah. And I think that was crucial. It was really, really crucial to be able to view you objectively. And I think once you have that distance and you can come back and say, yeah, this is someone I want in my life. And you build from there. But I also think the second time round, we just muffled a lot, discontent, a lot of this pressure we were both feeling. Because I think we could have also released some of the pressure on the valve. If we had just addressed the thing. We could have been like, is this a bit too much too soon? Should we just step back? But we didn't. I don't know why. We spoke about everything else. Everything else.
I think it's because, well, for me, I idealized it as the goal for so long.
Yeah, same.
Like us coming back together, that when it actually happened, I didn't know how to move forward.
And I think we tried to like carry that old charm into this new one without building anything new. No new foundations, irrespective of the fact that we had both been through life for the last 5 years.
And have changed.
I've changed so much.
I want to take you back to our fights.
I think the first fight that was really necessary. And this was, I mean, we were still, I think, in the process of breaking up, or maybe had just broken up. But I remember having a conversation about us. And I remember just being infuriated with your refusal to like give this thing a chance. You were so steadfast in that it must end and it must end now. And it's interesting because at the time you didn't say any of what you're saying now. You didn't tell me that you were crumbling under the pressure. You didn't tell me that, you felt we were taking on too much, that the expectation was a lot, that I was putting it was framed as something else. I was like, but like you wanted this thing. Here's the thing that you wanted. We both wanted this thing. I don't understand. I was like, wow, there's no reasoning with this person. And if I can't reason with you, how can we be in each other's lives,
Yeah.
Why won't you see like how much you're hurting both of us unnecessarily?
Yeah, I do that. What you're saying is something all of my past lovers will agree with you without a doubt on. I exit abruptly, plan my exit before I inform you about it. Part of it is that I rationalize that there is no easy way of ripping off the band-aid. So just do it quickly and get it over with. And I don't allow for enough genuine negotiation, participation, back and forth. I just become very impatient at the fact that something needs to be dragged out when I've made a decision about it. And I'm sorry. I'm really not proud of that part of myself.
It's okay, mainly because I forgave you a long time ago. And I appreciate you saying that. I genuinely do. Because I can tell now how much of that stays with you. And this is another thing that comes from being a friend, is that I think I understand you and have compassion for you so much more than I did then. And I can see that it's heavy. At the time, I felt you were a bit cold. I was like, how is this so easy for you? You know what it is? I think it's the certainty with which you put something like a separation forward. I remember saying to my friends, like, how can she be so sure? Why is there no sense of doubt or some niggling feeling that you're making the wrong decision? Why are you not like questioning this thing? How can you were so matter of fact about the end? And that was really jarring. And I guess what I then didn't see, because we very much cut contact at that point, was how much of that you actually carry. You're cold in the moment, but I think it's difficult for you.
Yeah. I think it's a survival strategy that I developed as a child. To assume that by being cold or clean cut about something, that the pain will be over sooner. I think I would always just move my mind to whatever the next goal, target, position could and should be. And to be honest, even though I'm trying to unlearn it, I still don't really get the argument. In my mind, why should you stay in quicksand longer than you have to? You're sinking. Why sink deeper? Why not jump out sooner, faster, onto something that at least feels like a next step?
Maybe this calls into question your early warning detection system. Maybe you're flagging things too late, because it feels often that by the time you flag something, you've felt the thing, felt the discomfort, you've sat with it, you've thought about it, you've maybe spoken to a friend, you've let it marinate. And then when you flag it to your partner, it's not an actual flag. You're informing them of a decision already made. And I'm curious as to what would happen if you flag the feeling to your partner. Give them a chance. Give them a chance to say, and more than a chance, give them the agency to say, A, this is something I'm willing to work on with you. Or B, this is not something I'm willing to work on. I would rather walk away than work on this thing. This is core to who I am. But without giving them that chance, then you never really know.
Yeah.
And you can sit in hindsight and say it was the right decision, but you don't actually know, because you don't know what that shift in your partner and then the subsequent shift in your partnership would have done for the dynamic.
I think it's control.
Yeah.
The illusion of maintaining control over a situation pacifies my fear. And it's also an impatience. I do that. I rush to the end? You surprised by my answer?
No, I mean, no, I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised by how articulate you are, like how well you know these pathologies, you know?
Hmm. Can we talk about the time I fell in love with your friend?
That's really what almost broke us. Almost lost two friends in that episode. Yeah, it's weird how this life thing works, man. I would never have been as close to you as I am now without that thing. Would never have been as close to him as I am now without that thing. It in many ways took, yeah, both me and you and me and him almost breaking, as close to breaking as you can come without breaking, to be able to build something new. Because I think what hadn't been discussed is how unsatisfied I felt with both of those relationships to that point. Yeah, and it's weird how much like resentment I was able to articulate once that came to the surface. And in that breaking and fighting and arguing and tears and all of it, a lot was said and a lot just had to be sat with, let marinate, you know?
But I think the thing that I am still quite sensitive about is that it felt like a test to you. It felt like there was suddenly this concrete way of assessing how committed we are to you. And ultimately, you got the affirmations you needed or wanted or hoped for or were surprised by. But you got to keep us both. And him and I have lost each other.
Yeah.
And I want to know how you feel about that.
Yeah, in a weird way, it did feel like some sort of test. But again, like a test that's not of my making. I didn't choose that situation. So it was interesting to see how you both responded to a thing. And maybe you were responding to my response. It's something I've thought about for a while. Keep that in mind. In hindsight, I also feel really weird about it, man, because like that's definitely not how I would want to respond to that situation if it happened now. I mean, if we must speak frankly here, at the time that this happened, I was still madly in love with you. And I think holding on to this idea that, like I said earlier, things would turn around, you know, that you'd see the light. And so not only did that feel like a betrayal, but it also felt like, again, such a definitive fuck you and your romance. And like, can you not see that I'm done? If you can't see it clearly enough, I'm going to show you by hooking up with your friend. So I was like, yo, okay, I get it. I get it. We're done. It cut deep, and then that felt like pouring salt into the wound. And again, I say that if that happened now, I'd react very differently because I'm not madly in love with you now. I love you very deeply. And I think if you were to come and say, look, I don't know how this thing happened, but I think I'm falling for your friend, I would say, wish you the best. If this person legitimately makes you happy, I want you to be happy. And I want him to be happy. And it sucks that I wasn't able to say that back then. Yeah, and it sucks that I'm the reason two of my friends couldn't explore whatever they were feeling because I think those feelings were genuine, you know? I don't think those feelings were spiteful or malicious. I think these were two people that had, in a weird, crazy world that neither of them could have anticipated, found each other and found something that was compelling them to be with each other. And I don't like the idea that I came in between that because what those two people, both you and him, mean to me now, I want nothing but the greatest love for both of you. And, you know, if that love happened to exist between the two of you now, 1,000 want you to explore it.
Just trying to distill what your attitude is toward what people commonly refer to as the love triangle. When there are two friends who have happened to fall in love with the same person at different times. And the first friend feels more entitled to denying the second friend a relationship with their former lover. It's something that I do feel like we need to maybe confront a little more honestly and pragmatically. The more likely scenario is just that our social circles play out as dating circles.
Yeah, I completely agree with your sentiments there. And so I think we really just need to chill a bit, be a bit more compassionate, be a bit more forgiving. I mean, even framing it as forgiving is wrong because I don't think there's a wrong being done here, man. I don't think there's a something to be traversed like ethically, you know. And I think part of that uncomfortable feeling, yeah, comes from this very conservative, traditional society that we're raised in, and it socializes us into making being with someone this holy affair. It's a sacred thing that should never be broken, even after it's ended. And I think we need to let go of that a little bit. A lot. We definitely need to let go of that. And I think we must also lean more into joy, man. We must be happy for our people. This thing is hard to find, this love thing. It's really difficult to find.
What's interesting, if I may use that term, about your life is that you played both roles. You've played both the possessive friend and you've played the secret lover that felt like they were going against a friend.
It was instructive for me. I developed and grew a lot of compassion in that experience. And maybe it's informed how I feel now. Yeah. And I mean, we chose to go about it very differently, right? So
You chose to keep it a secret.
yeah, and walk away from it.
Yeah.
And walk away from the thing. Keep it to myself, sort of deny myself the possibility of whatever it could have become, and walk away from it.
The opposite of putting your chest up.
Yeah, the opposite of saying it with my chest. And it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I think I moralized something that maybe didn't need to be moralized. Yeah, like none of us, myself, you, my homie, the person who has an A in my dynamic, none of us cheated on anyone. We didn't break any vows. We didn't lie. All we did was fall for someone. In spite of the growth that happened in between them and the change of position that I feel now, I still fell prey to the same problematic norms and expectations in both instances. You know, so my response initially, as the possessive former partner who feels betrayed, those same expectations and pressures played out when I was the secret lover, because I walked away from it because of some perceived notion of betrayal and guilt, and that I was doing a societal wrong. But I do know that it sucks. It doesn't feel good. It feels like feel dishonest to myself. Forget like to the people around. Like it feels like I haven't lived my truth. That I denied myself something that was very real and special. Could have been special. I don't know. Maybe it would have crumbled and failed, you know, but at the time it was everything I needed it to be, everything I wanted it to be. And yeah, I walked away from that on some bullshit pretenses of morality. I wish I'd given it a chance. I wish actually that I had, because I think if we unpack these things, why we feel so uncomfortable about it, it's all grounded in very problematic premises of like oppressive tradition and patriarchy and possessiveness, things that I really try not to subscribe to in my life. But somehow in that particular frame, we keep falling back into these old patterns of how can you do that to a friend? But what does that mean? What am I doing to my friend? I'm doing absolutely nothing to him outside of this weird idea that once you've slept with someone, they are yours forever. It's a very strange, it's very, very strange and problematic dynamic. So yeah, it's tragic in both instances. I can only hope that if I found myself in a triangle, irrespective of whether I was ABC, now I would respond differently. I hope. But hey man, socialization is a monster. It takes a long time to scrub ourselves free of that residue. Evidently, you know?
Because this is a very personal conversation, the conversation on former lovers, on being in a relationship and then coming outside of a relationship and being able to look at it objectively or with some kind of a distance. Because it is a sensitive one, because it is an intimate one, I'm going to try to kind of navigate the conversation in broader strokes. What is it like to speak about something that you've been embedded in and then step outside of it and then step further beyond it, which is kind of what we're doing in here, is like a third level of looking at the thing. Like it happened down there, then we went up to the first floor balcony, and now we're on like the second floor balcony looking at how we respond to conversations that are hard, conversations that are tricky to navigate, that are sensitive. What does it take to look at something objectively for you?
I'm not entirely sure that objectivity is attainable, especially when it comes to matters so close to the heart. Because, objectivity implies rationality, which implies almost that there is a right and a wrong way of navigating a thing. What I have learned, and still learning, is each person that goes through their own subjective experiential journey feels like that is valid. That validation, maybe validation is a bit strong, but that acknowledgement that you are a being with feelings and those feelings are valid is what opens up the space for a more sober-minded thinking about the thing. Yeah, I mean, none of this is clear-cut or in any way linear, and my own process was super messy, a lot of volatility. But I think if you feel like you can genuinely trust the other person to handle this new development with care, it allows you to present or represent a vulnerability that you had convinced yourself you never wanted to give again.
And it leads me very nicely onto something else that I wanted to touch on, and that is this idea of how we're socialized to think about what these definitions of love, friendship are. And that socialization, at the end of the interview, you call it a monster.
It is a bit of a monster, our socialization. There's such a clear hierarchy that is entrenched in how society raises us, like friend zone. Oh, you were friend zoned. And it carries so much almost shame.
Which suggests that friendship is a terrible consolation prize to romantic love.
Yeah, it's almost like a participation award. You didn't come first or second or third, but well done on trying. Which is in so many ways just such a disservice to what friendship is and can be. I come back to the socialization because it's not easy to be so committed to loving a person romantically and having again been socialized in that this is the pinnacle. Once you find your person, you fall madly in love, and then after you're madly in love, you must get married, and this is your forever. You buy into that. Then for that thing to sort of crash and burn, and to try convince yourself that there is still value, or that there could be value in a new thing that the two of you can build together, is really, really difficult. And I mean, I think I referenced this in the conversation, but for the longest time, I didn't believe it. I didn't see a different mode that we could be. Yeah, it's difficult.
What makes it difficult? Are we really hurt because we're really hurt, or are we hurt because we think I'm supposed to be hurt? I'm supposed to feel like deeply upset that this thing didn't work out, whether in a friendship or in a romantic relationship.
Or what has actually hurt you? Is it the separation, or is it some notion of perceived failure on your part? Accepting that you gave everything that you had to this thing and it was insufficient. Is that what hurts? Is it the rejection?
I was going to say, is it our egos?
Yeah, is it
that
ego?
Hurt?
And I think about it also in terms of my work. Up until very recently, I was holding on to a job in which I was miserable. And I'm still trying to work through why the fuck I was holding on. It spoke to these other things that we've mentioned, this idea that if I quit, it represents failure. Have I achieved my goals? Probably not. Do I think too much of myself? If I leave, where do I go from here? Is this as good as it gets? Those things that played out professionally for me over 5 years definitely also creep into the thinking when it comes to romantic breakups.
The pressure of the label. We perform an idea of what we think romantic love should look like, or sexual love should look like, or what we think friendship should look like, or what we think our home life should look like, or the perfect job should look like, or happiness in your career should look like. I think performing to images and standards, and when I say image, I don't mean like actual images, but a kind of fictionalization of what we think it should be. And that pressure can be debilitating and destructive also.
I mean, it's in mine and Tiffany's sense, it's even more tragic because the image wasn't made up. At least I speak for myself, that I was definitely in my mind, the idea of who we were the first time round is what I was falling in love with all over again. I don't think I had given any space for either of us to be new people 5 years later. First time round had been so blissful, so quarter to perfect. I mean, mitigating circumstances, but really felt incredible. And that idea is what was compelling me the second time round, which is a really foolhardy way to try live your life, because ideas are ideas are just that, and as you said, you can build a lot of pressure with an idea. Reality, as difficult as it can be to navigate or to swallow, sometimes helps you in that it pierces ego. It reminds you of vulnerabilities and flaws, and that this is a person and not an idea. More than anything, that's the pressure that we crumbled under, trying to live up to this, what we're supposed to be, as opposed to just what we are. And it's weird because I don't even think I had given much room to think of things like, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Do I feel desired? Do I feel seen? All of those were second and third places. The idea was paramount.
Are We Our Work is an independent research project and podcast anthology series centered around questions of love, fulfillment, relationships, identities, and work. Co-hosted by Nadia Patel and Kemo Bosielo. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Ebrahim, sound design by Joao Orekia, music by Buma Levine, illustration by Softwork Studio, and web design by Sky Quadling.
To stay up to date with the project, please check out at Are We Our Work on Instagram, and come back next week for more laughter, tears, raw vulnerabilities.